Good morning, Broncos fans. I hope you're having a lovely Friday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are watching from. This is Legends of Mile High, and I'm Thomas Hall. And today we are talking about a potential fire sale for the Denver Broncos. We got the trade deadline coming up on Halloween, so it's only a few days away. Now, the Broncos' problem really is they've played a little bit better than they had early on, from my perspective. O-line's improved. The defense has improved. They've won a couple games. And that's the conundrum, right? Are the Broncos convincing themselves that they really have a shot to turn this thing around? Now, I don't know if that personally, I don't think they are. I don't think they can. But if they go out and beat the Chiefs, which is unlikely, but say they go out and beat the Chiefs, stop the streak, are they going to change their attitude when it comes to the trade deadline? And Sean Payton even came out and said that it will impact the trade deadline. But what we can do, regardless of what Sean Payton says, where the team is at, we can look back and see what has actually transpired over time, over the last 5 years at the trade deadline, and make some assumptions about what's really going to happen. Now, I know that I even said it early on when they were just getting slaughtered, is just trade everybody, rebuild, and start over, basically. Rebuild this sucker and see if you can find some winners. Reality is that doesn't usually happen. And we'll get into that today. Based on what's happened in the last 5 years at the trade and leading up to the trade deadline. The Broncos have already traded one player before the trade deadline, Randy Gregory. So this has already started, right? This kind of getting rid of the players that don't belong has already started. So let's chat about that a little bit today. First, we're going to just say good morning to a few people who are in the chat already. Kevin Gray, good morning. Thank you for being here. Kevin Gray says, morning, Thomas. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country, Denver Broncos for life, Mile High Huddle for life. And David Youngkin's in here this morning. Also, good morning, David. Thank you for being here. Really appreciates you being on the show. And David is saying, I don't know if we have the right personnel to run the offense that Sean wants to run. At 2-5, everyone is on the chopping block except Patrick Surtain the second. Trade him just so we can find another Patrick Surtain the second. Yeah, that last statement is really kind of tongue in cheek. It's you already have a player who's one of the best, if not the best, in the league. Even though he hasn't played up to his standard a couple times this year, he's been a pretty solid player. So you've got probably a future Hall of Famer in Patrick Surtain. Yeah, you could trade him away for picks and maybe get an impact player, maybe just get a couple nice starters, but it's going to be pretty tough to replace Patrick Surtain. So from my perspective, he's not even on the block. You don't trade him, even if the team is going to give you way more than you could have ever anticipated. You still don't trade him, because finding another player like him in the draft is extremely difficult, and you'd have to be very, very lucky in order to do that. So, and he's young. If he was 30 or 29, then maybe you think about it. But he's young. He's in your future plans. You don't trade him. So thanks for that, David. And thanks for being here this morning. Joey LaGuardia just in 5 minutes ago. Judy traded to San Francisco. Not really, but good morning. Good morning. Thanks for, you kind of scared me there for a second. I was like, oh man, I was just on social media checking news before I jumped on here, and you kind of worried me that I missed that. But thank you for coming in here, Jody. Appreciate it. And we also have Jeremy Sean. Thanks for being here. It was great to see you again at the meet and greet. Thank you so much for being there, and thanks for being here. Jeremy Sean saying, morning, Thomas. I doubt there will be a fire sale, but I could see one or maybe two moves, kind of like those companies who are perennially going out of business. That's funny that you say that, because you it's one of those things where you go into those stores thinking that you really are going to get this deal, and it's really not a deal. But you're right. I do believe that the fire sale, so to speak, is not going to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen uh, regardless of the victory or loss coming up this weekend. So everything that I'm saying right now doesn't depend on whether or not the Broncos have a new attitude and changing their mind on what they can do this season. Because you look back at history, the last 5 years, and I'll go through it right now, and I will have an article up on it in more detail coming up, hopefully published today. If not, it'll be published tomorrow. But if you look back at the last 5 years, there's been 62 players trade or 62 trades, rather, so to speak, leading up to the trade deadline. So a couple weeks before the trade deadline and the trade deadline. But if you think about those 62, it seems like a lot, but in actuality, it's about one for every 3 teams. So there's not this, even teams that are trying to rebuild, there's not this massive, let's trade everybody type of thing. And if you look back at these trades, when they're trading players, usually the most that ever happens is 2 transactions leading up. So teams trade 2 players. That's happened a few times. And in fact, the Denver Broncos traded 2 players, but they also traded for 2 other players as well. So it's one of those things that they're not just getting rid of players, just to get rid of them. So that has happened. And the most that has ever happened was 3 in 2021. The Jets, I believe, traded 3 players leading up to and at the trade deadline. So you're not going to see 5 or 6 or 7 players getting traded just because you got to find a trade partner. You've got to, you've got to make sure that the deal works out. So it's not one of those things where everybody gets traded. It just doesn't happen, unfortunately. And there's not most players are or teams are pretty set with their rosters. They're pretty happy with them now. Sometimes there's a injury and they go out and try and get somebody, and that happens. And maybe that will happen this weekend. There's a significant injury, and the Broncos trade somebody to a contender that was unexpected because they offered them a little bit more than maybe what the players would be typically worth otherwise. So that could happen. But let's think about this for a second. So I was talking about this on Wednesday with Ron White on the show that I usually do with Luke, Mile High Insiders. We were talking a little bit about trades, and if you look through the roster and you look at players who can really be traded based on their contracts, or who really isn't in the team's future, you really come up with about 5 players that can be traded, and that's really it. You could try and trade others, but it's really not going to help you out right now. It's not going to help you rebuild because you're going to mess up your cap, or that the player is really a young player that should stick around, right? So, and I've identified pretty much Justin Simmons, Garrett Bowles, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Josie Jewell really are those tradable pieces. And someone that some players of value who can be traded for something. Now that's only 5 to start with. And then you have to think about, is it right to trade them now, or can they be traded before the draft after the season's over? Now that kind of narrows it down even more, right? So if you look at Justin Simmons, it doesn't really matter if you trade him in the season or next year, right before the draft. Your cap hits are going to be about the same, things like that. So he could probably be a trade candidate, Justin Simmons, definitely. But then you look at someone like Garrett Bowles, who, you'll get some cap relief now and going into next year. But if you wanted to hold on to him and trade him pre-draft, if there isn't anybody that's really willing to trade you something good for Garrett Bowles, his cap hit and the value to the team right now, instead of putting in, somebody else in there like Fleming, it may outweigh trading. So if you look at it that way, The only real question mark, I mean, you can say Jewel, if someone's willing to give you something, he's gone at the end of the year. So you can trade him if you can get anything. Judy is another candidate to be traded because it makes really no difference if you trade him now or if you trade him after the season's over. So you've got, you got a couple probably that you can do. Simmons, Judy, and Jewel for sure. Sutton is the one that is a little bit of a question mark for me. You trade him now, you can get some cap relief and probably better than trying to, or similar to trying to trade him before the draft. I think some of his, I don't think he has any guarantees or things like that, but that's one that's a question mark to me. So, but he's been playing a lot better. He seems like he's in the team's plans right now. So that's a question mark for me. So really you only have 3 real candidates to trade to start with. I mean, if you think about it that way, so even if there was a fire sale, it's probably only going to be 3 players. It's probably going to be a combination of Simmons, Judy, and Jewel if you can get anything for them. So that's the that's where I'm at when you kind of think about it reasonably. Now, I was, like I said, I was watching the Miami game. I was beside myself. Like, how can this be so awful? I was ready to trade everybody. But the more realistic I got, the more research I did, it's not really going to happen, so to speak. All right. Albert Knoppers, good morning, sir. How are you? Coming in saying, morning, Thomas, Michael, and other Mile High Huddle fans. Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. It's great to see you, and appreciate you coming into the show. And we got Michael Ronquillo also coming in, the legend with Facebook stars. Thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate that. Michael saying, good morning, Thomas, on Legends of Mile High. Go Broncos. Michael, I really hope you're doing well down there in Arizona. And I know the fall's here. It's probably still pretty warm down there, but it's turning fall here. And football season is in midstream. And I mean, from my perspective and for Broncos fans, kind of the ones that, really are diehards that want them to win, I hope the Broncos can turn this thing around. I hope they beat the Chiefs. And if they can figure out a way to go into Buffalo and beat the Bills, I'm back on board with them running the table. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm hoping for it. So thanks for the support, Michael, and thanks for being here this morning. Appreciate it. Got Quinton Caldwell coming in with a super chat. I really appreciate that, Quinton. Thank you for being here. I know it may not be early where you are. It's early here, and there's a lot of people that don't want to get up and catch this show live. I actually enjoy it live because I get to interact with people with good comments and their perspectives. Even if it doesn't align with mine, we still have a nice conversation. So thank you for being here, Quinton, and thank you for the support. Really appreciate it. Quinton says, morning, Thomas. No fire sale. Trade some players. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think there's a couple players that they may put on the block and they may get something for them. And really this, like I said, this weekend is kind of the tail of the tape, so to speak. What happens not just to the Broncos, but what happens to some other teams, right? If the Broncos lose, I think they'll probably try and trade more than they would have otherwise. They'll have a false sense of security about how far they can actually go with this thing this year if they win. But the other thing is injuries across the league. If other teams who are contenders, say someone loses a left tackle who like Pittsburgh or Baltimore, somebody who actually has a winning record that has a shot at the playoffs, are they going to give you a little bit more for Bowles and make it worth your while to send him and replace him with Cameron Fleming? Especially if you've lost, yeah, it's worth it. But I think it's going to be really heavily dictated about what happens this weekend. But I still don't think it's going to be more than 3 players. 3 players is kind of my limit on who is, regardless of what happens. It's 3 players. It's not 5. It's not 6. It's not more than that. Joey LaGuardia is coming back in, talking about Justin Simmons' trade value. Justin Simmons, based on other trades, would get probably a 3rd to a 5th. Not sure that's worth it. Judy, I'd get rid of him ASAP for whatever I could get. Bowles is playing well this year, but he definitely isn't elite. Sutton is good. I don't know if I'd trade him. Those are good points. Now, yeah, we watched the Eagles trade for a safety. Probably not as good as Simmons in my mind, but that player. But it's it wasn't one of those trades that made anyone think that you're going to get a huge amount for Justin Simmons. Now, the problem, it's not really a problem, but the issue, I guess, with Justin Simmons is he in your plans for more than 2 years? I don't think he's in the Broncos' plans for past 2025. So if he's not, are you willing to take a third and a fifth? Probably, right? If this team really is going to rebuild, are you going to take what you can get and get a couple draft picks? I mean, let's think about this. The Broncos have hamstrung themselves by trading away draft picks for Russell Wilson and for Sean Payton, and they really do need to get more picks and get younger and stop trying to fix things with free agency and and go about business the right way. Get some trades. So I think I think they think long and hard about a third and a fifth for Simmons, just because of his age and get what you can get for him. Maybe they'll want to hold on to it, see if they can get something better before the draft, things like that. I don't know, but he's definitely tradable right now. He's definitely tradable right now. Judy, you can trade him now or after the season, whatever, to get something for him. I don't know what you're going to get because his contract is coming up. His contract, this 50-year option is not an impediment to trade. It's a pretty fair price for his kind of caliber. But he doesn't seem like he wants to be here, and he seems like the most tradable piece, right? I think the entire offensive line outside of Mike McGlinchey is playing a lot better. I think Ben Powers struggled at first. He's gotten a lot better. Cushenberry came out of the gate much better than he has been, and he seems to be improving. I've liked Miners the whole time. Bowles, you're right. It's McGlinchey that's the problem. But again, you got to think about is his play this year and next year and the following years going to be in your plans? And his contract is not one that is untradeable. I think they hold on to Bowles. I actually think they hold on to him and try and do a deal before the draft, really, because you're good either way. Really, you've got you've got some room to do some trades and get something for him later. So yeah, I think you're right. But Sutton's the one that's it's a bit of a thank you for the Joey. Sutton's the one that's a bit of a conundrum for me. I think it's actually more beneficial to trade him now, but I think they like him, and I think he can still be in their future plans. Really, I've done age analysis studies across all positions, right? And I've looked at all of them. Wide receiver actually has a peak, in the 27-year range, I think, but they don't drop off rapidly. So even at his age, he might still be valuable for the next 3 to 4 years as a secondary receiver to a number one receiver. I want them to either utilize Mims as the number one receiver or go out and get another number one receiver if they don't think Mims is up to the task, which seems like they don't, because they're not letting him play very much, even though he's the most explosive player on the team. It's a very interesting way of going about playing one of your best players, right? It's on game day. It's a head scratcher. But I think Sutton still has value, and he has value going throughout the year, and he's playing pretty well actually for a team that the last 2 games have not been very aggressive with their play calling. I just have not been happy with their red zone play calling, especially. They just don't seem to want to attack. And it's not because they couldn't, because they were attacking, I thought, a lot more earlier in the season. So why did that change? I don't know. But I think Sutton's having a pretty solid year. It's probably, he may end up with a 1,000-yard season, maybe not. He's already got 5 touchdowns, which is pretty solid. I mean, he's not the top, 10 guys in the league, but he would still be a solid player. And I know his contract's a bit heavy for that type of play, but it's not outrageous either. People are upset about his contract and stuff. It's okay. It's not terrible. It's not great. I just don't think it's detrimental. There are some contracts that are detrimental. Russell Wilson, his contract is detrimental for his level of play, and one that you can't really get out of. I mean, you can, but it's going to take a massive hit. And like I've been saying, if you're going to do it now, right? Get out of that contract as soon as you can. Take that massive hit and try and move on. But I think that I don't think Russell Wilson's going to get traded. I don't think anyone. You could trade him because most of the guaranteed money and the bonuses will all get rolled into dead cap, and so you're just paying this base salary, and then you can cut him with little pain and everything. Because right now, I think his cap hit at 49 years old is around $50 million. It's nuts. That contract is definitely detrimental, but it's hard to trade him, and I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna stick with him this year. Jeremy's coming in with a good comment here about this. Says if they trade Simmons, that would be a prime indicator on Sean Payton's intentions with the rest of this season. Yeah, it is perhaps. The thing is, I don't know what Sean Payton really wants to do. I feel like he thinks that this team still can turn it around. And the reason why I say that is because he hasn't been playing the young guys, right? Like I said earlier, Mims has not gotten a lot of snaps, even though he's your most dynamic playmaker. JL Skinner, who hasn't played, he's been healthy inactive all season, even though they were down to 2 safeties at one point. Riley Moss has got very little playing time. It's just these young guys who really you should be evaluating right now at if you're at 2-5 or before you were 1-5, hasn't got any playing time. So what is his intentions? It boggles my mind. You've got Mike McGlinchey struggling like crazy. Why not bring Palczewski off the IR? I mean, and see what he can do. There's just so many head scratchers, Jeremy, that I just don't know what his intentions are, even if he trades Simmons, right? I think trading Simmons is more not really as much about this, what his intentions are. I think we're going to get something for him and try and build for next year. But again, then they're going to have to play those young guys because you got Kareem Jackson's out for 2 games. So that would mean that if you traded him Simmons at the deadline, you'd have 1 game where you've got both Simmons gone and Kareem Jackson gone. So it would be a strange scenario looking at it that way. So it might be a little bit harder to trade Simmons. They may not. And so it's going to be an interesting turn of events when the deadline comes along. I don't know. Keith Brugman, thank you for being here, Keith. It's nice to see you this morning. Saying good morning, Thomas. What are your thoughts on what happens with Tim Patrick? Well, you can't do anything with him now because he's injured, obviously. So, I mean, you could do some sort of injury settlement or something like that, but the team's gonna have to wait until he's healthy to do anything. He's just unreliable, right? I like the guy. I like his play. He made me eat crow a long time ago when I was like, yeah, you don't need Patrick. He's a great player when he's on the field, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. It would have been nice to see what he could do in Sean Payton's offense, a bigger receiver, kind of like Courtland Sutton, to have them kind of duke it out to see who sticks around. But I think once he's healthy, he's probably not in their plans. It's just his age, his contract, his availability just points to the fact that he's not going to be with this team probably next year. I don't think. And when he's healthy, you'll probably see them make some sort of transaction with him. It's a shame too, because he really built up his career from nothing and became a pretty solid wide receiver that was very reliable. It's a shame, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be around next year. I don't think he's going to be on the team, and I actually think there's going to be a lot of changes on this team, and a lot of changes too from I think the players that Sean Payton tried to bring in from the Saints, some of them aren't going to be around either. So I think there's going to be some major changes. I just don't think it's going to happen entirely. Everything's going to happen at the trade deadline. I think you're only going to see 1 or 2 players traded. All right. Kevin Gray's coming back in talking about QBs. If we draft a QB, a quality QB, we'll need Russ to give the rookie some time to learn. Perhaps. If you're going full rebuild, you want to start him you want to start him playing early, right? So that he can get his experience in. The biggest problem with keeping Russ and a young quarterback, if you draft a first round quarterback, say now you draft a third or fourth round that you want to develop, that's a different story. But say they go out and they get their quarterback of the future in the first round. The benefit of having a young quarterback is you have him on a rookie contract. So you can go out and you can use salary cap to bring in players in free agency to help him win, right? But Russ's contract's prohibitive of that. So you have Russ and you have a rookie. Even if you cut Russ, you're still got a big dead cap hit. So you don't have that advantage. That's why I say if you're full rebuild and you're going to go get a quarterback, you need to bite the bullet on Russ right away. That way you can have the benefit sooner of having that rookie quarterback. I wouldn't keep Russ around if you have your quarterback of the future. You just can't. I mean, I understand that it's nice to have that quarterback to learn from and learn how to be a quarterback in the NFL, but you're just prolonging that benefit of having a rookie contract and giving you less time. If he becomes that franchise quarterback that you're going to have to pay, you have less time in order to build around him when you have that salary cap relief. So that's the only issue that I see with keeping Russell Wilson around. If you draft your quarterback of the future, if you do, that's the interesting thing. And I'll tell you, I don't know what they're going to do with Russell Wilson. That contract is such that it makes the team almost want to keep him around, even though he has not been playing up to the standard of his contract. I mean, he's getting paid a lot of money, a lot of cap hit, and his play's been better. Don't get me wrong, but that money is not so great that he's not lifting the team on his back and carrying him. I think he could be a great quarterback with better players around him. I think you could win with Russell Wilson still. I believe in Russell Wilson. I look at his stats. He's much better, much more improved than last year. He's still making mistakes. All quarterbacks do, but it's the amount of money that they paid him, and the play isn't, really commensurate with that huge payday that he got. So it's just going to be interesting what they do with him. And either way, whatever they do with him, it's going to be painful. It just really is. And Joey's coming back in. Thanks, Joey, for this comment. It's true. I mean, that's the problem. If Russ gets hurt this year, all those guarantees kick in, and you've got a problem. You've got even a worse problem. If he goes on to IR and can't play, I mean, it's a risky move to play. That's why if they keep playing him as they go along and they don't, switch him out, then he's still in their future, right? Because if the Broncos trade 3 players and they're ready for the rebuild after this deadline, if they continue to play Russell Wilson, that means that he's sticking around for at least 2 or 3 more years. That's just the way it is. And even regardless of whether they draft their new franchise quarterback, because if he gets hurt, they're in trouble. So, thanks, Joey, for that reminder. His contract is really cumbersome, and it wouldn't be if he was playing really well. Like if he was, one of the top quarterbacks. He statistically he's still one of the top quarterbacks, but being able to manufacture wins from the quarterback position, he's not doing. So that's the problem I see with it. His contract's just so freaking cumbersome. Keith Brugman's coming back with a question. Says, I got one more question. What's the deal with little Jordan Humphrey? Up and down off the practice squad. Has he maxed out his elevation number? Yeah, he has. This is it. He can't be down back to the practice squad again and called back up. He's got to stay on the 53-man roster now if they want to keep him around. They were just manipulating the active roster with little Jordan Humphrey on the practice squad. I predicted that they would do that with several receivers. Rotated. The one that is interesting that I thought would get more time is David Stills. I thought he'd get called up more and more, but so for me, my perspective with little Jordan Humphrey, if they cut him, then he's probably not coming back unless there's an injury. He'll maybe get picked up by another team. And then they'll start using David Stills kind of in that call up and drop back down situation. That's what I think. Little Jordan Humphrey, it's interesting to me. Like I think he has 4 receptions on the year. He has 1 touchdown. He just hasn't been targeted at all really that much over the last several games. I think he's a good, a decent player to have around, but he's not one of those that I would cry about if they cut him and said, okay, we're done doing this up and down type of thing. Because he's just he's not impactful enough. Although he plays special teams, and he's pretty decent blocker in the run game. So I mean, there's value in him to keep him around. But if they need to make a move on the 53-man rosters, it might be little Jordan Humphrey that gets cut. So, but yeah, he's done. I mean, that's the last time they can call him up. So I think they're going to start doing that with David Stills. I think he's going to be the next guy that they kind of start to fluctuate back and forth. Otherwise, I don't know why. I mean, he's not like a really developmental guy. I mean, he played pretty well. I mean, yeah, you can develop him, but I think he's ready to be called up and start playing. All right, Sean Rules coming in. Judy to Washington for Chase Young. I think we had this question before. If you're rebuilding, do you want Chase Young as a cornerstone of your rebuild? You're gonna have to pay him after the year, season's up if you want to keep him around. If you just want him for 1 year, it doesn't make for the rest of the year. It doesn't make much sense. I mean, because if you're going to rebuild, you want to get draft picks. I don't know. He's not very. He doesn't stay healthy, and I think I don't know if they would do it. I just don't know. I mean, Chase Young's got those injury concerns, and you're going to have to pay him big money to keep him around as a cornerstone. Now, if you just want another pass rusher for this year, fine. But you have Baron Browning back. He's going to be fully healthy probably this game. Probably going to play a lot more. You got Benito. You've got Cooper. I know Chase Young's more. I think he's a higher level talent, but the health concerns. So it would be interesting to see that trade. But then you got a problem at the end of the year. You're going to have to let him walk if you don't want him as your cornerstone. Jeremy Sean's coming back in, saying the reason you would draft a QB and move on from a decent Russ is because it will be hard to rebuild with such an expensive player on the books for 4 more years. Exactly what I was saying, Jeremy. His contract's prohibitive to the rebuild, and if you're going to draft your quarterback, you got to get rid of Russ. You just have to because you don't have that benefit. So, yeah, thank you for coming back in and saying that. Appreciate it. All right. I'm just going to have to grab this comment because I loved Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was a kid, man. Tyler Brooks is coming in saying, Tom or Indiana Jones, ? This team will beat the Chiefs this weekend or fall to 1-7. That's the question. Will they beat the Chiefs? Go Broncos, go Mile High Huddle gang. Thanks, Tyler, for being here. Appreciate that. I just don't see them beating the Chiefs. That's the problem. I mean, I want the streak to end, but here's the issue. The Broncos have no home field advantage. So being at home doesn't make any difference because they've lost. They're 1-3 at home this year, and that Mile High magic's gone. And the Chiefs just have a better coach and better coaches and more talent. It's hard to overcome that, even with the desire that they have to break this streak. So to me, it's really hard to see them beating the Chiefs, even though it's time for this streak to end. So Michael Ronquillo's coming in to say he's got some keys for the Broncos. He says his keys against the Chiefs are to get turnovers, get pressure up front, and not turn the ball over. Yeah, that's the thing, man. You're gonna have to be perfect. The Broncos are gonna have to be perfect to beat the Chiefs. They can't turn the ball over. They can't, allow some big yards after the catch to set up a touchdown or get a touchdown. They got to be good on special teams. They have to be really good on penalty front. So they've got to do a lot of things right, really. I mean, they can't make mistakes at all, really, if they want to keep this game manageable and be able to pull this game out. Now, the Chiefs don't make a lot of mistakes. They have been making mistakes. Mahomes has definitely thrown more interceptions this year and got lucky on a couple that he didn't get that got called back due to penalties or whatever. So he's making mistakes. The team seems to be making a little bit more mistakes than normal. But they'd have to make a lot of mistakes for the Broncos to just win comfortably. And I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a game if the Broncos can play really well, not make a lot of mistakes, it may go down to the wire. But again, the Chiefs just have a lot more talent, and they just know how to call the game a lot better. Michael Ronquillo saying, great show today, Thomas, on Legends of Mile High. Go Broncos. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And, if I missed any comments in here, any Facebook stars or anything like that, I really, I apologize. I've been trying to keep an eye on my computer over here, Facebook, and see what's coming in. But thanks for that, Michael, and thanks for people being here. Appreciate it. Keith Brugman, thank you, Thomas, for delivering another amazing Friday morning Mile High Legends podcast. Well, thank you, Keith. Appreciate that. And I always appreciate chatting with you, and thank you for coming in here in the morning. I do. I love being able to talk with you guys in the chat and banter back and forth about what we all think about these Broncos and football in general. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'm going to wrap the show up. So thank you so much for all you being here and talking with me this morning. Thanks for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. So hopefully next week, I've been super busy. Hopefully next week I can bring back the Mile High Legend. We'll see. I think I've got a pretty good one. So I just need to do some more research on it and bring it back. So next week, don't forget, same time, same place. Thank you very much. Have a great day, Broncos fans.